Iguodala to Curry, back to Iguodala, up for the layup. Oh, blocked by James. Curry, one-on-one, Irving puts it up. It's good. Kyrie Irving from downtown. A three, steps back, crossover, puts up a three. Rebound James, second. It's over. It's over. Cleveland is a city of champions once again. The Cavaliers are NBA champions.
Cleveland, this is for you.
What's going on, Cavs fans? Welcome back to another edition of the Block, the Shot, the Stop, a Blue Wire podcast talking about the Cleveland Cavaliers. He's Kevin Lynch. I'm Skylar Webker, back after what felt like 4 or 5 days off. Good little refresher. But we're back to talk about the Cavs taking a 128-107 victory against the Timberwolves. Kevin, what was your first impressions of tonight's game? Especially, obviously the key point is DeAndre Hunter's first game.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's what everyone was looking at first, especially when we found out Max Strus wasn't going to play and they slid Hunter into the starting lineup. But Evan Mobley quickly took the attention there. I think he had 6 points and 3 rebounds in the first 3 minutes of the game, and just kind of led the Cavs to, I believe it was a 16-0 run to start the game, and obviously never really looked back from there, and kind of put it on cruise control to a really nice win against a Minnesota team that is super talented. It's the whole is less than the sum of the parts, I think, with that team.
but
they are super talented and one of the best players in the league, and to kind of control a game from the outset like the Cavs did was really great tonight.
For those that didn't get to watch the game, the Minnesota didn't score their first They were 7 minutes into the first quarter before they scored their first point, and it came off of a free throw. So that's how this game started, is that Minnesota was just brick after brick after brick. I mean, they tried everything from the three-point line to getting layups, and they couldn't get started in this game.
They couldn't. It was so at the end of the first quarter, it's 30-12, and it wasn't that close. I think it was like, I think the Cavs were like 16-0 to start, and I know they're at 22-3, like that halfway through the quarter break, and the Wolves had to like go on a run to make it a 30-12 first quarter.
It just gives off the vibes of that YouTube clip of like Chris Paul nails a clutch three to cut the score down by 42. Like it's just a hilarious meme.
Yeah,
I did not realize the volume shooter that Ant Edwards is, or I guess had to be in this game. Holy cow.
He is. I mean, tonight was. I watch a lot of Ant Edwards. He's like one of, not as much this year, but previous to this year, one of my favorite players to watch in the league. This year's been a little bit frustrating, but he is a volume shooter. It was exasperated tonight, I think, because it got down so early that he just started hunting his shot. Which was true tonight and has been true for the season is that like 50% or more of his shots come from three. And he is one of the best players in the league at attacking the basket between, his handle, his size, his athleticism. I think it's kind of a waste for him to take over 50% of his shots from three, even if he is a pretty good 3-point shooter. I just think that's not capitalizing on his on what he does best.
I wonder how much of that is because of Rudy Gobert being in the center spot, and you kind of say, Rudy, you take the paint, and you try to fill out the arc around him. But you're right. I think he's a lot like Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, where like he's so good at just driving to the basket and being that. I don't want to say freight train because that's not Shai's game, but Ant Edwards has the size to be, a young LeBron, freight train driving to the hole.
Yeah, he absolutely could be. And to his credit, I know like he's shooting a career best. He's shooting great from three this year. And I'm a big proponent of the 3-point shot. I do think we go a little bit too crazy with it sometimes, in the fact that like yes, 3 is better than 2, but if every time you go to the basket, it's a higher quality shot, the chance of getting free throws goes up. I think there's an argument to be made, say both is a good play, going strong to the basket and shooting a quality 3-pointer. But he's shot great from 3 this year, has not shot as well from inside the arc for whatever reason. And his free throw attempts are down. I feel like he's a guy that should be shooting as many free throws as just about anybody in the league, with his athleticism and ability to get to the basket. But, all that's to say he got plenty of points tonight because he took plenty of shots and he's a really great player. But the Cavs definitely controlled the game tonight.
Yeah, 28 shot attempts paired with probably 6 free throw, 13 free throws, but like 6 shots that turned into free throws.
Right.
So you're looking at like 34 shots for Ant Edwards tonight, which is crazy because the next highest is Naz Reid with 12.
Yeah. Yeah. And kind of getting back to the Cavs, like you asked me like the first thing I noticed, and obviously like Hunter's first game with the team, the way Mobley started, I would say like this was one of those games that is super encouraging that all 4 of the big 4 were having a really good game, like throughout. Like in the first quarter, it was mostly Mobley and Allen just kind of controlling everything. And then Garland Mitchell got going well. You look up at halftime, all 4 of them are in double digits in points on efficient shooting and then contributing somewhere else, whether it's rebounding, assists, whatever. And so like these are the type of games when you get all 4 of them going at the same time, get timely contributions from other guys on the team that, makes you think of what the possibilities are for this season.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I'll start at Mobley. Holy cow. 10 rebounds, 6 assists, 2 steals, 4 blocks, and 28 points. Woo! I mean, if you saw that stat line against the Timberwolves, you would have said, oh, Rudy Gobert is out tonight. Rudy Gobert was on the floor. I mean, he played 27 minutes on the floor. That's incredible stat line.
Yeah, it is, and it comes on the heels of 2 incredible performances by Evan previous to this one. Really, since that Boston game, where frankly he was bad. Like and I said after that game, and I stand by it. I think one of the last evolutions for Evan is to be a great player, you have to make an impact on the game on your bad nights, so to speak. Like that night, like Jason Tatum wasn't very good. He still scored 21 points and had 10 rebounds. Like Evan wasn't very good and he had like 7 and 4. Like that's, but all that's to say, when Evan has it going well, like he has for the 3rd game in a row, he's as good as just about any big man in the league at getting you buckets, at controlling the paint, at protecting the rim. Like his last 3 games are about as good a 3-game stretch as he's had this season.
Sydney's commenting on your sick old school logo hat, man.
Thanks, Sid. Appreciate it.
Yeah, I mean, this is why he's an all-star, first time all-star, but I would venture to say perennial all-star. Even if he just has seasons like this every time. That's a perennial all-star. And I think a couple of weeks ago when that first Thunder game, Richard Jefferson said, we probably have like 70% of Evan Mobley unlocked. Like there's still so much more room for this guy to be MVP caliber, perennial MVP caliber player. So I'm just so happy that he's on our team.
Yeah, no, he was fantastic tonight. And I mean, and we'll go up and down and talk about everybody, but like the one other thing I wanted to point out was like Donovan Mitchell, just like once the game was, pretty much put away in the fourth quarter, he decided, I want to go down and find Rudy Gobert every time and take him to the paint. He didn't even make him like come out and put him on skates to blow by him. He like took him to the paint and like shot floaters over him, did turn around jumpers over his outstretched arm. Like That was about as intentional as I've seen a small guard go at a 7-footer in the paints as I can remember.
Dude, that was like as intentional as Kendrick singing about Drake at the Super Bowl halftime, man. I mean, he still has such bitter feelings about Utah and the way things ended in Utah, and it's obvious. Like, it was really obvious.
It was. I think those feelings, at least a bulk of those feelings are for Rudy Gobert, because you saw him like with Joe Ingles tonight joking around. Like, he gets on with those guys. I don't think it's like a whole thing about his time in Utah. I think it's kind of squarely on Rudy. And in fairness, he wouldn't be the only guy in the league that doesn't enjoy Rudy's company.
Yeah, I think it all stemmed from that 2020 COVID.
Yeah,
like intentionally touching the mics and then getting COVID and then starting the bubble, where they were like a really, really good team that year. They went to the Western Conference Finals that year, bubble and all. So, I think Donovan Mitchell still has hard feelings about Rudy Gobert in that situation.
Yeah, and I don't know. That was just fun. It was. It's fun when something kind of can keep you engaged. You're entertained when a game's kind of a blowout in the fourth quarter, and that kind of just when I was about to kind of fade out from the game, maybe start doing some dishes while I was still watching it, he started doing that, and I'm like, okay, I'm gonna watch to see where this goes.
Sid even says that they're bitter about the Rudy and the COVID crap.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was good to see Donovan Mitchell being just highly efficient tonight. 10 for 14. Really the only struggle was the free throw line, and 1 for 3. Jared Allen having another double-double tonight to pair with Evan Mobley's double-double. So, I mean, these guys were cleaning up the boards, man. I mean, 49 rebounds as a team, but those two were 23 of them.
Yeah, no, they came out and that started like from the jump. The one of the big reasons the Cavs jumped out to the lead they did was because Mobley was scoring and him and Allen were controlling the paint. I think they had between them like 2 or 3 block shots there in the first half of the first quarter, and just they won the game in that first 6 minutes of the game tonight. The rest was just kind of semantics for the most part.
Yeah, it really was. But we can get to DeAndre Hunter. He was kind of the talking piece of coming into this game, just being the guy coming in for the trade. And they paid. You and Tim talked about it, and you thought, well, he's making quite a bit of money. You like the player, you don't like the contract. I definitely understand that. But he played really good defense on Edwards throughout that. I mean, he had to kind of leave early with 5 personal fouls there. But, I don't know if they're bringing him in to be a starter. So he's making the same money as Max Strus. And I don't know if they're bringing him in to be a starter, but I think they're bringing him in to be out there in the fourth quarter so that you have your defensive length, your defensive presence, without sacrificing shooting. And I think that's really what they went and got Hunter for.
100%. He brings a component that the rest of this team doesn't have, especially when Dean Wade is hurt, because he's the closest to it. And that's a big athletic wing guy that can match up with big athletic wing guys on other teams. Like it's so no, and I don't want to be like a Debbie Downer, but I think there is a version of this DeAndre Hunter trade that is a total slam dunk for the Cavs.
Yeah.
Like I kind of, and maybe it's my, kind of from my day job, I kind of have to be this way, but like, look at all potential outcomes and everything. And I just thought, his contract's kind of high. That's not even the biggest thing for me. His contract's kind of high and he signed for several more years. You can say that's a good or bad thing. I'm okay with that. It's more so that he makes $22 million a year and he's injury prone. That's my risk. And I think like we could bring him in and he could be a phenomenal pickup and help the Cavs, be one of the title favorites and or win it this year and then miss 40 games next year. Like that's kind of been his MO. And I worry a little bit about Cavs fans with DeAndre Hunter because they like to get on Dean Wade about Dean Wade's availability, right?
Mm-hmm.
Dean Wade in his career, this is his 5th season, averages 53 games played a year. DeAndre Hunter averages 53 games played per year. The difference between them is Dean Wade makes $6 million a year. DeAndre Hunter makes 22. So when you have someone making $22 million and then they end up not available 30-40% of the time, that can really hurt your team, right? So again, that's my cautiousness to it. I definitely think there's a version where he's exactly what the Cavs need. And he, other guys have had injury troubles at the beginning of the year and then beginning of their career and then, kind of worked their way through it and been more available. So, but that's my biggest thing. It's the amount of money he makes and the injury and his injury history. And you were talking about starting him or ride the bench. I want to get your take on this. Like I was listening to one of our friends, Zach's podcast yesterday. He actually had Luca from Real Cavs Fans.
Oh, nice.
And he was talking about, he did a podcast with the guys from his network that cover the Hawks. And they said that from within the team, they purposely kept him in the 6-man role to keep his minutes under 30 a game, at about 28 a game. Because anytime he got to 30 or more, he started having injury bug things come up. And so Zach was kind of using that as an example, with the Cavs and the way they manage minutes, I'm sure they could keep him that 20 and 28, but would it be better to keep him kind of as the 6th man, or you could start him and then he just, is out for 8 minute stretches in each half.
Yeah. So, I mean, the contract and money piece of it, from what you were mentioning, I feel like there's always a risk. I mean, you have a chance to look like the Mavs right now.
Yeah.
You just lost AD for the rest of the season.
Sure.
So, I mean, there's a risk in that. So I definitely understand that. You don't want to be, caught with your pants down.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I think the way that Kenny runs this team and manages minutes, nobody plays over 35 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
Now, there's to be expected that's going to go up once we get into the playoffs. But I think between what you have with him, say he can give you 25 a night, and then you have pair that with Max Strus, who can give you 25. I think, having those guys available, it definitely helps, especially because Max is kind of a 3-2 kind of forward, and DeAndre is definitely a 3 or 4 kind of forward, so he can play up.
It definitely improves their chances this year. I have no doubt about it, because all they basically gave up, and I don't want to say all. Tim and I went through how much we appreciate Karras and Georges and hope they do well, and I stand behind that. But the way things were going, both LeVert and Niang were going to get squeezed out of the playoff rotation minutes.
Yep.
So you're basically trading 2 guys who, in all likelihood, aren't going to play much in the playoffs unless there's injuries or something, for one guy that will. DeAndre Hunter will be in your top 7-8 players and play 25 plus minutes in the playoffs, assuming health and foul trouble and those kind of things, right? So I have no doubt it'll help them this year. I also think it's great because the longer these Dean Wade and Isaac Okoro injuries kind of drag on with no real updates, we're not to the point of getting nervous about missing the playoffs, but you would like them to come back and play enough to get in a rhythm before the playoffs. And now we're, 20 something games away from the end of the regular season. And so all that's to say, for everything I said, I like the DeAndre Hunter move. It makes me a little bit nervous, especially long term. And I'm just always somebody, I don't love trading for someone when they're having their career year, which he is, but that doesn't mean he can't have another career year, have an even better year next year or anything, right?
Yeah, I mean, like you said, availability is a trait, that is a skill. And he hasn't really proven that for the Hawks. And part of that could just be I mean, there's a million factors that go into it. It could be how the coach plays you, the way the style of basketball you're told to play, the minutes. Could just be him and his body, and that's nothing we can change about that. So there's 1,000 different variables, but
sure,
I do think that he's better for this year, and you have him for 2 more years. So really, all you gave up was 2 months of Karras and next year of Niang. So you gave up 1 year of Niang and 2 months of Karras for 2 months and 2 years of DeAndre Hunter, and then some lottery tickets.
Right, and the draft picks, which are nothing more than like currency in the trade market, like nowadays. But anyway, I was actually just fact checking one thing. I think Hunter signed for 3 more years after this one. I don't know if last year had a player option or not, but he definitely is signed through 27, 28. Nope. My apologies. You're right. It is 2 more years after this one at like 23 and a half and then almost 25. Yeah, I mean, it's a lot of money, but if we as in the Cavs get the DeAndre Hunter of this season for the next couple of years, the trade's a huge win. If we get the guy from the previous few seasons who was more like averaging 14 points a game instead of 19 and shooting a little bit worse and missing more games, then might not be as good a trade. All that's to say, I think some people just went like, this is such a huge win, it's the greatest trade we've ever made. I was like, I see a version of this as really good. I see a version of this where there's risk involved too, like more than a little risk. And that's all I was gonna say. But I actually think for this season, it is a huge improvement in their playoff rotation, because now, assuming health, which is a big thing to assume for any NBA team, especially the Cavs team with a couple of guys, having an 8-9 man rotation of the big 4, Hunter, Strus, Wade, Okoro, Ty Jerome, that's as good of a rotation top to bottom as anybody in the NBA has. Absolutely.
And I think part of the reason I think the Cavs are okay making this trade is what Jalen Tyson has shown them. Like, he has shown that he can contribute at an NBA level. He had 2 kind of rookie air turnovers tonight, but other than that, like, he was plus 16 when he was on the floor. And he was in there for good stretches of the game, not just garbage time. I think what Jalen Tyson has shown you made it okay to part ways with Georges Niang also. Knowing, minutes, like you said, minutes are going to get squeezed. But it felt like there was a bit of a redundancy between Georges Niang and Jalen Tyson. The only kind of factor that you have in there is an NBA vet and a rookie.
Yeah, I think, and honestly, this year, I don't know if everybody agree with me. I think Georges Niang was much more important than Karis LeVert was to the Cavs this year. One, because of his size and the Cavs' lack of like reserve size on their roster, and what was so important is Niang has the availability skill, right? He never missed the game as a Cav, and it was like 130, 140 games, I think, including the playoffs. Didn't miss one of them, and that is key, so that when other guys have bumps and bruises or are seriously injured, you still have a quality rotation person. Like Georges Niang is a hugely important guy for the regular season that frankly gets squeezed out of minutes come playoff. He's just a fringe guy in that regard. That said, and how I kind of see your point and agree with you is that I think Jalen Tyson is one of the guys that could take enough regular season minutes so that the depth doesn't become compromised and you end up having to play starters more than you were previously, when you're doing like a 2-for-1 type trade like this. And so, yeah, I mean, I think they feel, I think they're encouraged by, and he might be at the top of the list, but like even Craig Porter Jr., I think they really think they could get some value out of him. And we've seen it with Sam Merrill. And then like Ty Jerome, who was phenomenal again tonight. Is Ty Jerome been their 5th most important player this year behind the big 4?
Yeah.
I mean, he has to be, right? that guy just continues to continues to make himself a lot of money for next year, and he continues to just make winning plays. And you would think it's such a bad position for someone to be in, to be the backup point guard on this team behind Garland and Mitchell, but he has found a way to thrive in that position, kind of change his game a little bit to fit, playing with both of them, to on nights when one of them doesn't play, that he kind of has to increase his the playmaking load he takes on. And that guy, I don't know, I can't. We're at the point now, it's no longer fluky if he stays that. I mean, he's been doing it for the entire season, and frankly, he should get some votes for Sixth Man of the Year, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think I saw that Hunter is second in Sixth Man of the Year to, I forget who he's behind, but put some respect on Ty Jerome. Yeah,
Peyton Pritchard.
Yep. Yeah, Peyton Pritchard is leading Sixth Man, but put some respect on Ty Jerome, man. I mean, I feel like we come on here weekly at minimum and talk about how much of an impact that guy has made to the Cavs and this season. And if he goes out and gets a payday at the offseason, good for him. I hope it's with the Cavs. I don't know if they have any room to do anything with. They have a partial cap hold on them, but I don't think it's going to be enough to keep them.
Yeah.
But thank God he's on our team for this year, because let me pull up his stats again. I switched tabs. Ty Jerome, 15 points, plus 14 on his plus minus, 4 assists, 2 rebounds, a steal. And the steal was to take it and hit a 3-pointer at the buzzer beater, which, by the way, the Cavs got called a technical on for excessive celebration. Have you ever seen that before in your life?
Oh, who cares? Let them celebrate. It's fine.
They just hit a buzzer beater to go into the half, and you're going to call excessive celebration? I might not. I think it was maybe going into the fourth, whatever it was.
Yeah, it was going into the fourth. It was going to the fourth quarter, yeah. No, because at the end of the first half is when Anthony Edwards got his technical.
Yeah, that's when Ant got his for barking at the refs.
Yep. Yeah, no, I all this to say, it was, great seeing Hunter in his first game of the Cavs. He had a fine game. It wasn't, it wasn't so much about tonight as it is, getting him acclimated to the team, and then, the contributions he can make down the stretch into the playoffs. The other interesting thing, now that the dust is kind of settling on the trade deadline, the Cavs do have to fill one more roster spot. I'm sure they're kind of waiting to see if there's any more buyout guys, and if they want to go that route, or I'm assuming if no buyout guy shows up in the next week or so, that they're going to convert one of their two-way players. I would guess JT Thor, but I could be wrong about that. Only because of his, size and everything, and two-way guys can't be on playoff rosters. So I would think they would put JT Thor on just in case an injury happens, and then need another big guy on the playoff roster. But I am kind of interested to see. Have you seen anything from the buyout market? Anybody that's you think might pique the Cavs' interest, or anybody that may be coming there?
Well, it's not Ben Simmons.
Yeah,
he signed. That was the person that they were tied to in the buyout market, but he ended up going to the Clippers. I really haven't seen any names on the buyout market. I haven't seen anybody reporting anybody getting bought out. It's been slim pickings when we thought the buyout market was going to be a little more luscious.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. I mean, the biggest name in the buyout market, especially for centers, is Daniel Theis. And he's not exactly, somebody's going to change the trajectory of your team or anything. The other problem is now, and we're not a podcast that has to talk about the Lakers, but like it does the fact that the Lakers trade for a center for Mark Williams got rescinded. They're now going to be super aggressive on the buyout market for centers. And so
I thought the same thing when I saw that.
And so that may affect who the Cavs can get, if anyone. And, the best move might, instead of, grabbing somebody just because they happen to be taller or something, maybe the better move is converting one of these two-way players to a really, friendly contract for the next few years and then try and develop them into a contributor off the bench the same way they have so many other guys. Nothing wrong with going that move. But yeah, I was kind of thinking the same thing. Doesn't seem to be nearly as much out there as they thought there might be. And so I'm sure they're just kind of giving it a little bit of time to make sure nothing else pops up.
Would it be crazy to convert Amani Bates?
Wouldn't be crazy.
I mean, he's not going to be on the playoff roster, so you know that.
Yeah. I see what you're saying. I would probably choose one of the other two-way guys. For me, I actually think JT Thor is an incredible talent. Like, I actually am kind of surprised they even got him on a two-way. And so, like, he's missed a little bit of time with injuries right now, but that would be who I would get. I know they actually really like Luke Travers from everything I've heard, so it wouldn't shock me if it was him either. I think it would have to be one of those three, but I don't know. I don't know that it'd be crazy, but my best bet would be on Thor.
I'm just saying Bates because they like him. They liked him coming out of the draft, but haven't put much faith in him, on court or, off court. So to me, like if they did that, that would be kind of like, this is your last chance or last opportunity type of situation.
Yeah.
Not saying that the other guys don't deserve it. Travers actually got some minutes tonight, 2 minutes.
Yeah. He I don't think we really realized, since he's been spending so much time with the G League, that he actually was injured the last few weeks, and that's part of the reason we hadn't seen him at all. But yeah, no, good for him to be back. I don't know. We'll speculate about all that stuff. We're one game away from the All-Star break, which will give us plenty of time to speculate about stuff like this. So
yeah, absolutely. So let's get into the preview for the game. We go over it quickly because I hate to say it, but it's just the Raptors.
But the Raptors played the Cavs really tough last time, right? Am I remembering that right?
Yeah. It was one of the games, or no, that was Houston, because you're thinking Fred VanVleet went off.
No. It was, remember, the Cavs played Toronto the night after they beat OKC. And they were losing most of that game to Toronto and ended up coming back to win at the very end.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, that had been the last game because 126 to 132. That's the closest the score's ever gotten.
Yeah. So, I agree. This is a game. Go take care of your business. The team is about to get eight days off, even though several of the guys will be at All-Star weekend. But yeah, you take care of business. I was looking it up during the game today, and we were kind of down on the Cavs in January. Not down, just like we're calling things as they were. They weren't as good in January as they were previous to that. But now you start looking like they were 10-5 in January, and now they're 4-1 in February. They beat Raptors or 5-1. That puts them at like 15-6 in this year, in January and February.
Calendar year.
Yeah, calendar year. And they're like, and which is probably a top 4 or 5 record over these 2 months. It's just it slightly pales in comparison to how they've started the year. But for everything they have settled into just being settled into still being one of the top teams in the league, even when they're not on one of these crazy winning streaks and everything, right? They lose a couple of games, but then they came back and won 4. They lose a tough game to Boston, and then they come back and they win 3 in a row after that. So, like, I think it's actually really impressive how they've kind of bounced back from the most adversity they've had this year, these last couple of weeks. And get this game against Toronto. And I've kind of talked about this, and this is like the math in my head. I want, if the Cavs can keep the lead over the Celtics at around 6 games or more, I feel like the Celtics are going to take their foot off the gas by the end of February. Because once you get to about 20 games left, right? If the Cavs have a 6-game lead, that means even if the Cavs went 500 the last 20 games, Boston would have to go 16-4 just to match them. At some point, they're going to be like, it's not even worth the trouble. We'll just be the 2 seed. Like, it's probably not going to happen anyway. And that'll be that. So I kind of think that's the key of, here by the end of February, if they still have around a 6-game lead, I think Boston will put it in cruise and therefore let the Cavs put it in cruise, and they'll secure the number 1 seed and also have some time to kind of like rest some guys leading into the playoffs.
I think a lot of that is going to be dependent on how they come out of the break, how the Cavs come out of the break, because their schedule coming out of the break is, they have a couple of games that are rough. Brooklyn, who didn't get worse but didn't get better. Knicks, Memphis, Orlando, Boston, Portland, Chicago, Miami.
That 4-game stretch after Brooklyn is tough because you have the Knicks and the Celtics, who are obviously the top 2 competitors in the East with the Cavs. You have Memphis, which has been one of the best teams in the league, top 2 or 3 seed in the West. And then Orlando, who's incredibly talented, but they've had a lot of bad injury luck this year. And then even when they got their guys back, for whatever reason, they've really struggled recently, but they're a very talented team. That's a really tough 4-game stretch, as you said, kind of right at the start of the coming out of the All-Star break. So I agree with you. It's any time that you can play the Torontos and keep the distance between you and Boston, or add a game to it, because I think Boston has San Antonio on Tuesday night. You should take advantage of those opportunities this time of year.
And it's funny, that rattle off of games brings us to the end of February. So if they can keep that 6-game lead to the end of February, I think you're right. I think everybody starts taking their foot off the gas and it's just say, seeding is cemented.
Yep, I agree. But first things first, take care of Toronto on Tuesday nights, and I think you and Wednesday night. Sorry, and then we'll kind of set everything up after the All-Star break and do some fun stuff over the All-Star break as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I can't wait for some of the stuff that we got planned, both in the All-Star break and coming out of the break, that we'll share with everybody once we get things a little more cemented. But with that, we can go ahead and get wrapped up out of here. Please give us a follow or subscription on YouTube. Follow us on all of our platforms. We love fan engagement. We love talking with you guys. We love talking Cavs. We're Dad's Talking Cavs, man. Subscribe on any of your audio platforms. We're on all of them. Thank you to Blue Wire for letting us do this pretty much every night. And Kevin, sound us out of here.
Go Cavs.